All right, so we chose Trump border security for this deep dive, and I got to admit, uh, I knew it was going to be a lot to unpack.
Oh, yeah.
But wow, this second term is really something else. I mean, it's even more complex than what we saw before. Are we ready to kind of break all this down and really try to understand what it all means?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not just talking about one single policy here. We've got a whole bunch of them. And each one comes with its own set of legal questions and potential social impacts. I guess the best place to start, well, the most obvious place, I guess, is with the wall,
That's
right?
great.
I mean, Trump saying he wants to get that construction going again. Well, it's definitely got people talking. But what really makes me think is the Department of Defense being involved and all those active duty troops, like 1,500 of them getting sent to help. That's kind of strange, don't you think?
It's not every day you see the military, building something like this. It almost feels like we're blurring the lines a little. Like what's the military's role and where does it stop? Is this a sign of more to come?
Well, that's a really good question, and to be honest, it's one we need to keep an eye on. But remember, the wall itself, it's one part of a much bigger strategy here. The administration's also talking about mass deportations, like big ones focused on undocumented immigrants they think are security risks. And get this, their goal is to deport, get this, up to 5,000 individuals every single month. That's a huge jump from what we've seen before.
5,000 a month. I mean, wow. Just trying to picture how that would even work, the logistics of it all. It's mind-boggling. And what about, we were talking about all these different policies. What about Remain in Mexico? Didn't they bring that back?
Yeah, they did. It's asylum seekers. They can't come into the U.S. right away anymore. They have to stay in Mexico while they wait for their cases to be heard here in the U.S. And a lot of people have. They've criticized that policy. I mean, it's not exactly the most humane thing, is it? Think about it. These people they're often fleeing really dangerous situations, and then they're stuck in who knows what kind of conditions while they wait. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, it's really tough to think about. And on top of that, we can't forget the changes they made to how deportations actually happen. Like they made it easier to deport people without even a court hearing. Doesn't that seem like a problem? Like people aren't getting their fair chance?
That's exactly what a lot of people are saying. They're arguing that this whole expedited removal thing, it just cuts corners, It bypasses all those legal safeguards that are supposed to be there, and it could end up with people being deported when they shouldn't be. It's a messy legal situation for sure, and it has some pretty big consequences for people's rights.
Definitely messy. And then there was this whole thing about declaring a national emergency at the border. What's the point of that? I mean, what would that even do?
Well, declaring a national emergency, it's not something to be taken lightly. It's a pretty powerful move. What it would do is basically give the administration access to a bunch more money and resources, federal stuff, and they could basically skip over all the normal budget stuff and really speed things up, get these policies rolling much faster.
So it's almost like a way to get around the usual way of doing things,
That's
right?
right.
Like all those checks and balances we usually have. I mean, no wonder people are upset about it. And haven't there also been some pretty creative legal arguments going around trying to justify all of this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things they've brought up, and this is really something, is the Alien Enemies Act. It's an old law, goes all the way back to 1798, and it was basically meant for wartime. And now they're saying it might apply to this situation. I mean, a lot of legal experts they're just scratching their heads trying to figure out if that even makes sense.
Yeah, that's a bit of a head scratcher for sure. It's pretty legally confusing, to put it mildly. But let's step back for a second and think about, how are people reacting to all this? It must be causing quite a stir.
Yeah, it's pretty much what you'd expect. Public opinion it's divided right down the middle, mostly along party lines. You look at the polls and you see people, they just can't agree on things like mass deportations. It's a reflection of how divided things are right now politically. And you've got all these advocacy groups, they're really worried about what all this means, the human cost, whether it's ethical, especially when you think about the people who are, the most vulnerable, the ones who are just looking for a safe place.
Right, right. So we're looking at this situation, and it's a mess, really. You've got all these legal questions, and it's just a nightmare to figure out how to actually do all this stuff. And then on top of that, you have this huge divide in how people feel about it all. So what do you think? I mean, where do we go from here? What's the end game?
It's It's really hard to say for sure what's going to happen, but one thing's for certain, the administration, they're not messing around. They want to make these changes, and they want to make them fast. And with them controlling both the White House and Congress, they've got a real chance to do it, even if people are pushing back.
Yeah. This whole deep dive, it's really shown just how complicated this whole issue is.
Yeah.
It's not just about, building a wall. It's about this whole set of policies, and they could change a lot for people, for families, even for the whole country.
And as all this stuff starts happening, I think the most important thing is to keep watching, to see how it all plays out, to talk about it and to make sure those in charge are doing what they're supposed to.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, the big question is this: how's all of this going to change things, politically and socially in the years to come? It's a question worth thinking about as we try to make sense of it all.